One definition of tragedy is voting for policies that worsen your problems. The wealthy who voted for Trump made a self-interested but coherent choice for someone who will lower their taxes and promote business-friendly policies. But Trump's populist base may have made a tragic choice. His appointments and policies to date suggests he will not likely address their concerns. The Conservative Tax Foundation estimates that his economic plans will raise the debt from $2.6 trillion to $3.9 trillion in 10 years, even with the growth that he promises will come from his economic policies. Moody's estimates a loss of 3.5 million jobs from Trump's trade and tax policies. Whatever his economic plans really are, Trump's big task at the moment is to retain the support of the business wealthy and his populist base. As the expression goes, to dance at two weddings. This is the Republican coalition of the last 50 years. Should he lose one or the other bloc, the party risks splitting and losing its political hold. We see Trump's effort to keep each bloc satisfied in Trump's discussion of Obamacare and in his political appointments. First, Obamacare. To satisfy populist distrust of government programs and the health industries, that is, both sides of the Republican coalition, Trump promises to repeal Obamacare as a first priority, and moves to do so have already begun in Congress. But this has the problem of losing 30 million people their health insurance and canceling popular health insurance regulations. 56% of those losing health insurance would be whites. 80% would be those without a college degree. In short, Trump's populist base. So Trump is also saying that he will repeal Obamacare but delay implementation, hoping to reap the benefits of repealing and keeping Obamacare at the same time. How does Trump's need to satisfy both the business bloc and the populist bloc show up in his appointments? You should have a handout, a chart with his appointments. And you can, there are 2 or 3 of the most recent ones, I apologize, are not on there because he made them after I printed the chart. And I'm going to summarize, and you can read it on your own later. Satisfying the big business bloc, the positions responsible for the American economy are filled not by those sympathetic to the working and middle classes, but by representatives of Wall Street, notably Goldman Sachs, the very company Trump used to smear Clinton as an insider beholden to big money. His cabinet also includes representatives of the fossil fuel industries and of other large corporations that favor deregulation of domestic business. The weapons, nuclear, and associated industries will also benefit from Trump's pledges to build up the military and U.S. nuclear capacity. Almost all of his appointees favor global free trade after all of that campaigning about closing the borders. Save 3, Robert Lighthizer, Wilbur Ross, and Peter Navarro. This may mean open trade for big business, especially for the fossil fuel, nuclear, and military industries in the main, with some small increase in protectionist measures for other industries, giving big business open trade and his populist base some small increases in protectionist measures. Effects on the actual economy are yet unclear. But the shrewd observer will look at the financial benefits to these sectors, those represented in his cabinet and associated sectors, also as a guide to foreign policy. As we can see, from Trump's warm relationship with Vladimir Putin, with whom he and several of his cabinet appointees share oil and drilling interests. So if you want to know, I've been asked what the foreign policy is going to be like, follow the money. Overall, domestically, Trump appointees, 1, oppose increases in the minimum wage, that's the Mindestlohn, parental leave, and overtime pay. They oppose campaign finance. Have I got? No, let's see. They oppose campaign finance and election rule reform that would limit effects of money on politics and ensure that minorities are not barred from voting. 3, they support privatization of healthcare, education, affordable housing, and possibly Social Security. Additionally helpful to fossil fuel and agribusiness, the Republicans in Congress, their priorities include eliminating requirements to reduce methane gas emissions, eliminating the need to disclose payments to foreign countries for extraction of natural resources, and eliminating restrictions on pesticide use. Trump also rejected Republican Governor Chris Christie's ethics code that would have barred lobbyists from working on the transition team in any area in which they had been a lobbyist in the last year. As the new Republican-controlled Congress began its session last week, House Republicans, you may have read, slashed the powers of the independent Office of Congressional Ethics, created in 2008 in response to corruption scandals in Congress. This independent office would be replaced by another one that would have fewer investigative powers and will report to the House of Representatives itself. In short, the House of Representatives checking itself, for which I learned a new German phrase, macht den Bock zum Gärtner. Okay. Trump's response to this move by Congress focused on the timing, but not the substance, of canceling the Office of Congressional Ethics. He said that this office was unfair, but that Congress shouldn't do this in its first week when the spotlight is on it. In short, it looks bad, do it when nobody's looking. By contrast, Trump's populist voters, that's on the right hand of your column in the tabella, are given little in the way of economic boost. They are promised jobs in fossil fuel and possibly defense and nuclear industries, though many of these are overseas. 2, tariffs on imports, though this is unlikely, as it will prompt retaliation by other nations, including China, damaging U.S. exports, which will irritate the column on the left, no, the column on the right, column on the left of big business. 3, the populist base is promised a hawkish foreign policy, including the use of torture, which Trump believes works, and increased government surveillance of American citizens. And 4, and perhaps most interestingly, his populist base is promised various forms of throw the bastards out satisfactions, including small government, though this cuts government programs on which many rely. B, nativist border closing, though immigrants add jobs and tax revenue to the U.S. economy. C, a tough law and order approach to criminal justice, historically associated with racist assumptions coloring police, jury, and judge conduct. D, Islamophobia. E, homophobia. F, protection of gun rights. And G, again, repeal of Obamacare. Moreover, after 8 years of the Republicans resisting many of Obama's proposals on the grounds that they increase the deficit, the budget that is currently being considered by Congress shows an increase of the deficit to $29.1 trillion over 10 years, and from the changes he will make to health insurance. This by a party that sees a balanced budget, supposedly, as so important that it calls for cutting social services in order to achieve a balanced budget. And by the right-wing Freedom Caucus, which again supposedly sees a balanced budget as so important that a year ago it threatened to shut down the government rather than pass an annual financial plan that didn't balance the budget. Yet from these same Republicans, we now see a contemplation of a new budget that raises the debt to $29.1 trillion, which they say they will fix later. Yet Trump's public jeremiad of hellfire for Washington gives voice to economic discontent and to the belief that it will be solved by throwing the bastards out. The more unflinchingly he preaches, the more he's in sync with the national creed. To many, Trump just feels right when he promises to give a kick in the pants to Washington insiders, something like an update on the Boston Tea Party. Other Republican candidates also had small government proposal like Trump's, but they lacked Trump's feathers and war paint yelp. If the economic situation of Trump's populist supporters worsens, the real economic sources of this worsening may go unnoticed, just as they went unnoticed under Ronald Reagan. On a small government platform, Reagan indeed began by cutting taxes twice. And he continued to so convincingly preach small governmentism that few noticed that he later raised taxes 11 times, created a more regressive tax system, and instituted the deregulation that has caused middle-class purchasing power to stagnate for 40 years.